Hello, and thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Alton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. Thank you so much to those of you who've been emailing us and, reaching out to us about the All In series and how you enjoy it. And I have to say, this is by far like one of my most favorite series that we've done. So again, we're really wanting to look at what does it actually mean to be all in. And this week it's all about why sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes why as leaders we finish, we actually start really zealously, really enthusiastically, but not necessarily being able to finish with the same level of enthusiasm or excitement or even strength like we began with. So, if we kind of like begin with this thought that we all at some point have interest in something, right? So to be interested in something is more an emotional connection, if you will. You're interested in people, interested in hobbies, interested in games, sports, whatever. There's always that emotional attachment or connection to it. However, though, when I'm committed to something, it's not necessarily an emotional thing. When I'm committed to something, there is a cost attached to it. Um, the cost could be, the sacrifices I make. Maybe I might have to not go to bed as early as I wanted to, or you name it. But interest in something is more emotional, whilst commitment to something is, got a cost attached to it. And for the most part, almost most people are always interested in growth, but very few are committed to it. A lot of people like the idea of peppers. I want to discover my peppers. I want to walk in my peppers. But few are willing to actually pay the price that walking in peppers requires. And that's why so many leaders start well, but never actually finish well. Because starting is exciting, but to finish requires us to be disciplined. So if this year is truly to be the year to be all in, then really it requires us to be honest about a number of things. And one of the key things that we need to be honest about if we're truly going to be all in this year 2026, and that thing or the elephant in the room is as simple as it's going to cost you, not to punish you or to, but really you're only going to win in as much as you're prepared to win. And so we want to today focus on what it really means to say, okay, I've got to count the cost of commitment. Or what do you mean by Tina saying that to be committed, is going to cost me? It's simply about building the discipline of commitment. Commitment requires us to be disciplined. And discipline is not motivation because motivation can fade, but commitment is the kind when you're committed to something, it shapes your life over time. So when you're committed to, drinking, it shapes your life over time. Addiction comes in. When you're committed to, doing good for other people, over time, you have a lot of people whose lives and being transformed or impacted by you. So good or bad, when we're committed to something, over time, it will shape our life. That is the simple truth. However, you can't sustain who you're called to be without commitment. And commitment is not proven by what you say. Uh, what do I mean by that? Commitment is not proven by what you say yes to. It's only proven by what you're willing to pay for. And that, could be your time, could be your focus, your comfort, convenience. sometimes even your reputation, and sometimes like even approval, where I don't mean seeking other people's approval, but being willing to keep going irrespective of or in the absence of any of that. So your commitment is not determined by what you're saying or going to say yes to this year. It's only going to be determined by what you're willing to pay for. And like I said, time, focus, your comfort, your convenience, your reputation, and sometimes the absence of approval. So today we're going to unpack a number of things, and that is why, what I mean by commitment always has a cost, and why being interested in doing something or having something or being something is not going to be enough to actually get you there. And also why being, brilliant or talented, but when you're not disciplined, it carries a degree of failure with it. And also the fact that conditions around you or your environment cannot determine your follow through, as in how well do you follow through what you've said you're going to do or what you expected to do, and really how to build commitment that actually lasts. So some of the key points, and I have five anchors for us today. So I'm going to just run us through that. One is that your commitment always requires you to count the costs. And again, I've already gone through on what do I mean by counting the costs. And being interested in starting things is okay, but you're going to need commitment in order to finish them. And then being talented or brilliant without great work ethics can sometimes stall your potential. And the conditions around you can't allow those to decide how consistent you're going to be. And your commitment has to be renewed on a daily basis, not necessarily occasionally. So now I want us to walk through them. Anything that truly matters will cost you something. It's as simple as that. Time that you could have maybe spent somewhere, um, time you could have conserved or energy you could have conserved, maybe rested or be chilled about, comfort that, you'd have to give away, right? And often when we say we want growth, that should go hand in hand with increasing our capacity. So, as a leader, if you're going to grow, whether growing in yourself or growing in your skills or your leadership, whatever it is, it all requires that you grow as well, that your capacity is increased as well. And capacity is built by stretching beyond, what is convenient for you, right? So, one honest question, a real commitment would require you to answer this question honestly. And so, the question I want to ask you, and I want you to just pause and reflect on that question. Am I willing to pay the price for the life that I say I want, or the life that I'm called to live or called to lead? Only you can answer that question. And history also shows us again and again and again and again that a lot of the times when there's pressure as leaders, sometimes you can change course, right? Or in moments of pressure, even leaders who change course of nations were not the most comfortable, right? They were the most committed ones. So when pressure was around leaders that literally changed an entire course of a nation, they were committed. And we can think of Winston Churchill. It wasn't perfect, but he was so committed. And the cost of that commitment was high. But as he kept that commitment, he kept standing and kept standing and kept standing and kept standing and was able to actually lead the entire, United Kingdom out of a very, very difficult time. And eventually, we won the war. So again, I have an action or challenge for us to do. And it's, what is the one price I have been unwilling to pay? And I really want you to be really, truly honest with yourself. What is the one price you haven't been willing to pay? And it could be in the area of time, discipline, maybe hard conversations, or your focus. I want you to name them honestly. I really want you to be honest in answering that question. And then again, in practical sense, I want you to decide what is the one sacrifice you'll make this week that actually brings you back into alignment with your calling. And then, it may well feel like, well, this is hard. I want you to replace the question, why is this hard? Replace it with this question instead. Is this worth it? Because sometimes, I mean, I've been there myself. It's hard. And your mind can, gosh, why is this so hard? This is so hard. And when you find yourself thinking, this is so hard, or why is this so hard? You can just turn that question around. It's like, is this worth it? The point of that is helping yourself to see the future benefit of it, the future wins that, at the moment you say, yes, it's so worth it. Then, you're able to find that strength and remind yourself that things that are really meaningful, really convenient. Like if you have a new baby, and then they're waking up, every 2 to 3 hours, you're exhausted, you're tired. And I know because it's like, oh, this is so hard. But then it's like, is this worth it? Absolutely, it's worth it because I love that baby. And I want to care for that baby. So immediately your mind goes, yes, it's worth it. You're able to find that inner strength and pick yourself up and keep going, right? So point number two is you don't do something because you feel like it, or because it's new, or because it's, you know, inspiring. Sometimes we do things because we're emotionally attached to it. There's an, emotional interest in that. Yeah. However, the commitment is very different. And commitment is what you're often left when that emotional connection or bond is long gone. And sadly, this is where a lot of people would stop. Not because they're not capable, but because the interest in that thing was a lot more stronger than the commitment they had for it, right? And so the way to combat that is when you're interested, you would act or move when it's convenient. But when you're committed to something, you take action because it matters. Let me say that again. When you're interested in something, you take action usually when it's convenient. But when you're committed to something, you act or take action because it matters. And the challenge for us is I want you to look at one area where you know that like you've started strong, but you've really slowed down, really, really slowed down. And the question I want you to ask yourself is like, did I get started because I was interested or was I really committed? And write the answer down without defending yourself or making any excuses for it, right? It's like you've got to defend that that impulse or desire to defend yourself. So defend yourself against yourself, right? Against yourself, defending yourself. I know I'm repeating myself and create a tongue twister there, but the application is choose one task that look, I've not been committed to this as well as I should have. And fix a date in your calendar. When am I gonna do this? Like, when am I gonna finish this? Not when you feel like it, but completion. When am I gonna complete this? The third point I want to make is a lot of you listening, you're brilliant, 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 women leaders. You're gifted, you're intelligent, you're insightful, you're capable. But your talent alone, your capabilities alone, your intelligence alone will not sustain what you're called to do. Yes, it would open the doors, but even in spite of all of it, you still need to be disciplined. Yeah, you still need to be disciplined. And there's nothing sad or much more sadder than knowing that you could have done more, but like you were not consistent in showing up and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. Building discipline in our lives, building discipline as brilliant leaders actually helps you to safeguard the future. But just being brilliant alone where there's no discipline, unfortunately, is, means that you're going to falter. And as my daughter say, your batteries will run down a little bit. So the challenge this week is identify one area where you know that like your talent, your skills is so much stronger than your discipline. Just write it down. Just write that down. Where am I like really high skill, but the discipline that I need to, manage both is like really, really low. Just write that down. And then I wanted to create a very simple framework, which is these are my skills, this is where I'm lacking discipline. How do these two connect? Right? How do these two connect? And how can I take away the complexities? Because sometimes we make things so complex that it's like, I don't even know what to do. But then if we can simplify the process, then it helps us to maintain the consistency that we need. I want you to track this for the next 1 week until we are, having conversation again next week. And I wanted to now be able to connect these two. How do they actually connect? The point number 4 I want to make is that your conditions, your environment cannot be allowed to decide, your level of consistency. And a lot of the time, most people would approach, okay, I'm committed to something in one or two ways. One is where they're externally driven, and two is where they're internally driven or internally, motivated. And if your commitment depends on conditions, you would see that your consistency will change. It could be with your mood, it could be with your schedule, or just your environment, right? But if the commitments that you have in doing that thing or achieving that thing or leading your teams, if your commitment is anchored in, the decision that, look, this matters, this is worth it, I've got to do it, then I promise you, you will take action even when the conditions are so imperfect. Conditions can change, but your decision to say, I am committed to this, I am so committed to this, will mean that you'd be able to find that, strength. And like I said, it's always being able to think to yourself, gosh, this feels hard. Rather than thinking this feels hard, it's like, is this worth it? So again, turn it around, right? You can always control your choices. You can choose to see something as really hard, or you can choose to see it as something that matters. And you can choose your direction. You know what? I can be consistent in this. I can be committed to that, or I could, maybe be interested in it. Either choice or either decision will be, you know, a part of the determining factor in what direction you're going in your life. So the action this week is I want you to notice anytime you say, you know what, I'm going to do this when this settles down. I want you to catch yourself. And I want you to turn around and say, I'm going to take that step right now. And it might be as simple as just put it in the diary or speak a note into your phone and say, you know what, I'm going to set a reminder for it. Doesn't matter whatever it is. But rather than doing it later, just take that action right now. And then, in a really practical sense, try to build non-negotiable time blocks for, the priorities that you have. And then cut out the excuses, like cut out the excuses that you often rely on because it does nothing more for you. It does nothing than just keeping you stuck and keeping you more or less you're self-sabotaging yourself. And point number 5 is that your commitment has to be renewed on a daily, daily basis. Commitment is not a one-time declaration. Hey, I commit to do this, like, your wife or your husband. I commit to love you forever. And that's it. Like, I'm not, no, every day you tell your spouse, I love you. Every day you tell your spouse, thank you. Every day you tell your spouse, whatever it is, I'm grateful for you. You're not going to, hey, you know what? I told you I love you 20 years ago, so that's it. No, your commitment. It requires commitment. It requires a daily commitment, not a one-time declaration. It's a daily decision. What are you going to do today? And you have to choose it again today and again tomorrow and again the next day after. And that's actually how you grow and mature as a leader, right? It's in being able to repeat those steps every single day and follow through. You're doing what is right, even when you don't feel like it. Now, every week when I come to the studio, it's so hard sometimes, but it's like, is this worth it? Absolutely, it's worth it. So over time, as you follow through and as you renew that commitment on a daily basis, it builds yourself up, and then it builds others up, and then it builds credibility. So your commitment is something that you're going to prove first to yourself on a daily basis. It's a repetition on a day by day basis. So the challenge this week is create a one sentence that, your daily commitment statement. Your daily commitment statement. What is it going to be? And then you have to remind yourself on a daily basis. That's why it's called a daily commitment statement, right? And then you repeat it every single day. And then in a practical sense, I want you to look at, one commitment that is like, okay, this is a visible daily action. I'm going to do that on a daily basis. And then you review it at the end of each evening. I'm not saying be judgmental, with yourself, but it helps you to generate that awareness. And you know that as a leader, your level of awareness is very, very important. And if you miss a day, that's fine. Don't cut yourself up. Like, just get yourself back up the following day and then keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Your consistency grows as we, repeat on a day by day by day basis. So again, to run through the quotes for this week, being talented is great. It opens doors, but the discipline you build in yourself as a leader is what will keep those doors open. And the conditions of life, conditions that we all do life with, changes. But the decisions you make or don't make, they carry you through. And commitment is something that has to be renewed every single day. So in summary, whether we like it or not, as leaders, if we're going to be all in, it's going to cost you. And when you're not going all in, it's going to cost you even more. Let me repeat that again. Going all in will cost you, but not going all in will cost you even more. Commitment requires counting the costs. Being interested in something alone is not enough to sustain who you're called to be as a leader. It's good to be talented, but you need discipline to sustain, your talents. And the conditions in which you find yourself cannot be what leads your life. Your decisions should lead your life. The quality of your decisions will determine the quality of your life. And the commitments you make on a daily basis will also determine the quality of your life on a daily basis. Leaders who are great start and they finish well. So this week, choose one commitment that you're going to take seriously. I'm not saying be emotional, that you're going to take seriously and stick to it. And then I want you to stay through with us on this series, because by the end of this month, February, our goal is very simple. You wouldn't just say you want to be all in. You would have decided to live that way. And again, I say this every single week. If you want a community that truly strengthens your follow through, then Nations of Women is here to walk that journey with you. So once again, I encourage you to be courageous, to be disciplined, and to be all in, because your commitment is not what you say, but your commitment is what you repeat on a daily basis. Let me say that again. Be courageous, be disciplined, be all in, because your commitment is not what you say yes to. Your commitment is what you repeat and choose and decide day by day. Until next week, be all in. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Alton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.